Oh, thank you so much for being with me, Karen. I'm so glad to see you, and
Nice to see you.
wanted to talk with you a little bit about what you like about coaching and what you're so passionate about in the work that you do.
Okay. Um, I think the thing I like the most about being a coach is that I guess I'm quite nosy as a person. I love finding out about people. I love talking to people and I love finding out about their stories and what's happened to them and where they are in life. And so for me, it's something that's just really, really interesting. And with the coaching, what I find is that some people don't realize how interesting their background is or the things they've done or the things they've achieved. And when you talk to them and kind of tease it out of them a little bit, you find such little gems that you can then use to help them
Mhm.
differentiate themselves. And so that's what I really love about it, finding out about people and then using those little bits of information to really help them and help them achieve their goals.
I love that description. I am a nosy person. I think that's terrific. But it's where the good stuff comes from, right? If you took everything at face
Absolutely.
value on the resume, it would be like, oh, okay, I know what you do for a living, but I don't know anything about you.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, that fact that people, a lot of people, you know, they might be really, really confident in their work, but they might not be confident in who they are as a person and what's interesting about them. And when people share that with you and you're able to pick out those unique things about them and be able to say to them, actually, you know, that's really interesting
Yeah.
what you told me. And that is something that not lots of other people have done or can say that they know a lot about. And then you can kind of build that in. So that's probably what I like the most, I think. I probably should have said I'm a people person rather than
No, I like thinking that you're a nosy person. I love it. Um, so what do you think are some of the skills that you bring to coaching? We call it your coaching superpower, but are there things that you find yourself really bringing to each of the clients that you work with, and sort of, that skill set?
I think I think I'm quite adaptable
Mhm.
to different people, and that's another thing we actually really enjoy about the work is everybody approaches this whole thing differently. So some
Right.
people will, I'll ask them to put something down in writing for me to get started with, say, an essay. Some people will send 2,000 words. Some people will send 3 bullet points. And I think, you know, as well as making it interesting for me, I think that I'm able to work with a broad range of people and how they approach things. And I actually find that quite interesting and challenging that everybody comes at it from a different perspective. So I think that's probably what I would say is that I really enjoy working with people who approach this from different perspectives and different approaches. And I like to think I'm quite adaptable to how people like to work. You know, some people like to do everything in one go and send you everything they've thought about all, and then other people it's kind of dribs and drabs. And yeah, I think that's probably what I would say is something that I just adapt to how other people like to work, because I think when I'm working with somebody and they're comfortable doing it in the way that suits them best, then I probably get the most out of them and we get the best connection.
Right. As opposed to sort of saying, this is the way to do it, that there's a lot of
Exactly.
give
Yeah.
and take
Yeah.
collaboration.
I mean, some people like that guidance. Some people will say, tell me what to do and when, and you know, they'll want kind of by Friday, by Monday, whereas and other people, you know, that is part of what makes this job so interesting. Everyone is so different, and I like to be able to work with that and kind of, rather than dictate how we're going to work, is just have that initial conversation and say, right, you know, are you free? Some people will have like a day a week where they're going to work on this and then expect a huge amount of stuff in one day, and other people it's going to be, whenever I've got 10 minutes, I'm going to do bits and pieces. So I guess that, yeah, I think that being able to adapt to how different people work is, I think, a really important skill in this kind of role. And it's something that I really enjoy doing.
You've worked with such interesting students in the time that I've known you at Fortuna. Do you have a story that you could share with us about a really good student experience?
Oh, goodness. Worked with, I have worked with such a huge range of people. Um,
And if nobody pops into your mind, we can come back to it at another time.
yeah, no, I mean, loads of people pop into my mind. I'm just trying to think of, um, I suppose I probably would go back to the very first person I worked with, I guess. And that's probably, from my point of view, something that was really, really satisfying, because it was, you know, all new to me as well. And finding out about him, and he kind of had this huge gap in his experience, where he'd gone and done some traveling and he didn't really know how to frame that. And when we first started working together, I thought, this is going to be a real problem, because he didn't have a huge amount of experience anyway, and then there was quite a big gap. And I thought, this is going to be really hard to frame, and explain and kind of fit it in with what the school's looking for. But what was really nice was he was really honest and really open, and told everything about his motivations for why he took that gap and what he'd done during that time. And we were able to create this really interesting story about how he'd been in a particular role and that had come to an end, and then he'd made these interesting, quite challenging, quite risky decisions about what to do next, but how it had brought out all these amazing skills, and he'd made these fantastic friendships and connections. And I remember thinking at the end that at first I was, oh my goodness, this is going to be the thing that really holds this person back, and it ended up being the thing that actually differentiated him, and you know, and allowed us to bring something completely fresh to his application. So I guess because it was the first person I'd worked with, and it was kind of all a huge, you know, learning experience for me. And he ended up at his top choice of school, and you know, was absolutely delighted. So I think that's probably my favorite story.
And I love also seeing what happens afterwards. You know, I was talking with somebody earlier today about, you know, tracking people after they work with us and what happens in their lives, and
absolutely,
you know, that excitement and enthusiasm that they share for their experiences.
Yeah, definitely.
So thinking about all the different kinds of students that you've worked with, is there a piece of advice in general that you like to share? You know, I like to start my conversations with, do not hold back, you know, sort of like, tell me what you got. So what are some of the things that you generally like to impart to your students?
I would definitely say along those kind of lines is, you know, when you're working with a coach, it's really important to be open and honest, bring everything to the table up front. Because from my point of view, suddenly finding something out months down the line that you weren't aware of can really be difficult. So something that springs to mind, working with somebody who'd explained their current role, and explained a previous role that had not gone well, moved to this new role, and that was all fine. And it was very, very late in the process where she told me that this new role was within the family business, which wasn't a problem in itself at all. But it then became evident that this role had been kind of created for her, the result of a previous thing that she'd been doing that had gone wrong. And then all of a sudden it just seemed to not fit. It just didn't come across very well. It almost sounded like she'd gone off to try something and it hadn't gone very well. So she'd come running back to the family business, and they'd hastily made a role for her, which didn't come across very well at all. And I thought that was a real shame. And I think if she'd have been completely open about it from the outset, we would have been able to talk that through and decide how best to frame that, and make sure that we had explained what had happened and why she'd made the decisions she'd made. So I definitely think that from my point of view, everything is explainable. Everything, you know, we can work with anything, you know, whether it's problems that have happened academically or in jobs or personal issues or anything, we can work with that as long as that's brought to the table right from the outset. And I think it's really difficult if you find something out further down the line that then kind of unravels a little bit. And in this particular case, it was very late in the process, and there wasn't time to go back and kind of relook at that and think about how better to frame it. So I thought that was a real shame, because she had fantastic experience and skills, and yes, there had been an issue, but it didn't need to be a kind of something that was going to really affect her applications. But
because everybody's had something or many somethings, you know, and schools don't want people that are perfect in every way.
No, completely. And like with life, you know, when something happens that's not great or that you failed at, you learn from it and you grow from it. And we could have really used that and explained how, you know, that particular situation had really ultimately benefited her, but in the end we weren't able to do that because there wasn't enough time. So I think the key thing when you're working together is having a really open, honest kind of exchange of you know, everything from goals and experiences to failures and things that need explaining, and no last minute surprises would be my best.
Karen, I have a question that I haven't really prepared to, you know, I haven't asked you it previously, but what do you like best about where you live? Tell me a little bit about where you are.
Where I live?
Yeah.
So I think I'm incredibly lucky where I live. So I live in southeast of England, not far from London, and I am surrounded by lovely, amazing outdoor spaces. So just up the road is Leeds Castle, so a lovely old castle with huge grounds. We've got parks, kind of every direction you go in, there's a massive park that you can go and explore. I'm only sort of 40 minutes from London. If I want to go into London, about 40 minutes to the coast.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I feel like we're in the sort of place where whichever direction you go in, you find something really exciting to explore. And I think, especially this year, we've kind of appreciated on our doorstep probably more than ever, actually. You know, we've been making a real effort to go down to the coast and to go to the parks and make the most of the outside space. And yeah, I really love where I live because it gives me so many different options of places to go to. We've lived here for 10 years, and in that time, the other thing I love about it is that I've met a huge range of lovely people and have a really nice, really strong support network. And again, that's something that's really been evident this year as well.
Yeah.
Having lots of friends around and being able to meet people and see people, and if I'm out for walks, you know, bump into people I know. So yeah, I live in I'm really fortunate where I live, I think.
Well, I love asking this question because, as you know, our coaches are all over the world, and so I get a little sliver of what life is like in everybody's hometowns. Karen, it's so good to talk with you. I always appreciate the opportunity.
Lovely to talk to you, Judith.
Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks so much for your time.
You too.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye.
Bye.